Back, another road trip today for Mayor's Monday. Welcome back to the program. We're kind of right in the middle of downtown here, correct?
We are.
If I'm wrong.
We're stationed at Veterans Memorial Park, right in the center of our two bridges in the downtown part of Wisconsin Rapids, which we can consider our downtown waterfront district.
Yeah, and we've got a brand new program that it's just launched last week.
That's right.
As we're recording, this is the first day of this program, bike share program with. Is that Zagster? Tell us just what it was like to get this up and running here in Wisconsin Rapids.
Well, it really was a moment that we celebrated 6 years after the program got from ideation to a very small pilot. So originally we piloted a very non-tech, low-frills bike share program with stations across the city where actually residents donated used bikes. Our teen leadership program came together, did a repair program, painted the bikes cranberry color, which is kind of signature Wisconsin Rapids. And here we are 6 years later, after we used that program for a couple of years to pilot, to give us data around what's the user experience like in Wisconsin Rapids for a bike share program. Bike shares are notoriously in large communities that integrate with a bus program or a light rail or an underground subway system. So it's really the first of its kind in a rural community that we launched about 6 years ago from ideation to when we launched. And what we found was the primary users of the bike share program were those that didn't have access to a vehicle. Right, so either by choice, if they didn't want to own a vehicle, didn't have access to a vehicle, couldn't afford a vehicle, maybe lost the privileges to drive a vehicle. So that was really the first bit of information that we learned. Quite frankly, didn't know that existed, that need in the community. So after that information was learned, we realized there probably was a greater demand for an actual bike share program such as you'd see in a lot of large metro communities around the country or around the world. So about a year ago, a number of us, really led by the health department and Healthy People Wood County, came together around the idea when we met the vendor Zagster that we found that they would be a fit for our community. They really are very flexible in terms of where we want to put the stations. So it came around together to identify where might the greatest needs be. Wisconsin Rapids has about 30 miles of trails that connect around it, all recreational paved trails. So placing these bike share stations in locations where people might want to check them out, do a casual ride or a long ride and come back, really made it accessible for residents of our community.
And you were just talking as well. You've got several different membership programs that are going to be available with this. Can you tell us just about that? I know you said you've bought an annual pass as well.
That's right. An annual pass is $20, so it's really very affordable. The first hour is free. So when I think about it, it's $1 an hour to rent it. If I rent it for 20 hours over the course of 12 months, I've paid for my membership. And being, City Hall being downtown and me spending a lot of time downtown personally, walking and biking and running, having this program available will be great, not only for residents of our community, but also visitors. So we have flexible membership options, not only the annual membership, a monthly membership, a student membership, which is also a bit more cost effective than the $20. But you also could do a pay-as-you-go. So our convention center and hotel is 2 blocks from here. We can see it up the street behind me. Those folks that are coming to this community for conventions now will have an option. They've always said we like walking on the trail system, but it'd be great if you had a bike. So now we've got 6 bikes that are stationed at this station downtown that we'll be able to check them out. They can take them to another station and swap them out and just have full access to our recreational trail system here in the city.
And again, you just mentioned we have one station right now, but you've got plans for a couple others around the city.
That's right. There are 4 in existence now, effectively, but we've got another station launching, and then we're going to continue to monitor the data. What are the usage? The nice thing with the program is fairly flexible, so we can pick up a station and move it if we decide to do so. We've got a maintenance agreement, so all the bikes are maintained on a weekly basis. They're all tracked, so you can use a smartphone app to unlock your bike. We also had accessibility in mind, so we have a station at our library. And why we did that is because we know that not everybody has internet access or a smartphone, so you could actually go to the library, use a kiosk there, and get a code to come out and unlock a bicycle to use. So it really is accessible across the community spectrum. So we're very excited about that aspect as well.
So then, when you look back now, say next year at this time, when you're looking at the data and seeing how these bikes are used, what do you expect to see then? How do you expect them to be used over the next few months?
Well, it's obviously a new thing. So I was at Veterans Park the other day and kids came by and said, they checked the bikes out. So I think people are very much interested in trying out a bike share for the first time. I mean, many people have access to a bike, but there are actually a lot of residents that don't have access to a bicycle. So I think we're going to be able to test that information and see what people's experience was like. We plan to keep them as available throughout the year because we actually plow all of our recreational trails throughout the winter months. So when the weather is dicey in the wintertime and it gets mild, you could still check a bike out and use it across town.
So it'd be an interesting program. As you said, it's something unique for a city or a community of this size, and it's great to see that you've got that recreational offering for people as well. As you mentioned, several miles of trail here in Wisconsin Rapids, and it's all connected, so it's not like it's hard to get to.
That's right. We really wanted accessibility to be at the forefront as we add new trail segments. As we just opened last week, another mile of trail, about a mile from here, connecting into the village of Beer, and it brings people into the trail system and segment up there. We're still working on a riverfront project south of here, which brings people to this point as well. So everything is very intentional in terms of our planning, and we believe that you don't have to own a car in this day and age. Our cities were built around the automobile, but to offer people the opportunity to walk or to bike or to use other modes of transportation, such as our shared ride taxi service, there are many options in terms of residents and transportation for our residents.
Absolutely, and it's just one of those programs that we'll look forward to seeing how it goes as the next few months go on. Maybe check back in with you a couple of months from now and see how the bikes are being used here in Wisconsin Rapids. A few other programs that you've started here in the last couple of months. One of them we didn't get a chance to talk about the last time we met was improvements to the airport here in Wisconsin Rapids. Give us an idea of how those are coming.
Very connected to transportation, right? In fact,
exactly.
We've got bicycles available at the airport for pilots to check out as they're bringing aircraft and passengers to our community now. But since we last talked about the airport and receiving $4 million of state aid, thanks to the Wisconsin State Legislature and the governor, who really had foresight in economic development opportunities here in the city with the growth of the Sam Valley Gulf development down in the town of Rome. Last week was one of our busiest days. We had 7 aircraft parked on our tarmac in one given day, over $100 million collectively of value in those planes. So it was very neat to have that mode of transportation, again, continued to be exploited and used by visitors to our community. So our improvements out at the airport, in addition to the $4 million we received from the state legislature and the governor, we also received $2.5 million of federal aid to accelerate some other improvements on our primary runway. So $6.5 million we're very excited to have in planning or in construction right now, and those developments are underway. And so the first, probably the second phase, I'll call it, will be completed this summer or late fall, and then the next phases will begin next spring. And that is for aircraft parking. On days like yesterday, you got very large planes that can fly globally without having to refuel. So they're large, and you can only store a certain number of them at the airport at one given time. So we want to provide more aircraft parking as well as improvements to the runway system to make sure that those runways can handle the weight of those aircraft as they're landing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if you think a town like Wisconsin Rapids, 18,000 people, you wouldn't think that there's a whole lot of a need for an airport when you have things going on like this weekend with the Cranberry Festival. I mean, there are people that want to get here, and they want to get here quickly.
That's right. You look at communities like Eagle River and those other communities around the state, having private general aviation or general aviation airports available for private aircraft or chartered aircraft to fly into is really important to community success. And we saw an opportunity to leverage the Sam Valley Gulf development. Wisconsin Rapids is really a region of about 45 to 60,000 people, depending on how many communities you bring in to the fold. So we service a lot of industry and business in the area. So obviously those entities are looking at the expansion opportunities out at the airport and how they might leverage them as well.
So just give us an idea then of what the improvements are that you're making besides the tarmac, and then what's the timeline then for completion? Looking
at parallel taxiways, we've got our secondary runway under reconstruction right now. We pulled that out of service last year. We're actually repaving it this week. And then we've got parallel taxiways. So instead of taxiwaying on the primary runway, you'll taxiway on a taxiway. And which is a major improvement, because right now, as of yesterday, when you've got departure, takeoff, and landing multiple throughout the day, you have to really coordinate those things. And when we have large events that are being hosted at Sam Valley, congestion can happen. And so we want to make sure that the airport is not only very efficient and moves aircraft through, but it's also very safe. And taxiwaying on a primary runway is not a safe improvement unless if you've got a very small amount of traffic, that's one thing. But when you've got peak volumes and congestion, it can be a safety issue.
No doubt about it. So it's good to see that you're being able to make those improvements as well, because that is a big investment in the community. If you have a nice full-service airport like that, people are going to think differently about the community when they're thinking about maybe bringing some business or bringing a business into town.
That's right. We believe Wisconsin Rapids should be and can be the most business-friendly community in the state, and it's those types of improvements that get us there, and we're very excited to have this happen. It's part of $100 million of reinvestment that's happening in our community, and we're very excited, and we hope to have more excitement to share in the months to come.
And one piece of excitement that we can share right now, though, last month we were down by the Wisconsin River checking out the improvements that you're making to the trail system down there. I know this week you kind of gave the green light for another part of that to move forward. Explain what this the exercise equipment down there in the park is going to mean for the community.
Right. Well, health and well-being is important to our community and important to our community residents. And one of the improvements that we're making in along with the trail system improvements are actually fitness stations in one of the riverfront parks. So we've got a community group, a resident-led group that came to us and said, we want to put some fitness stations in your park. And I said, absolutely, you've got my support. So the Park and Rec Commission gave the green light to that group, and they're going to be fundraising to bring those stations there hopefully this summer yet once the project completes.
And so you said fundraising effort, the city's not sinking any money into that? This is going to be kind of completely from the outside, or is the city having an investment?
We're coming in from behind and doing more of the installation as well as some of the improvements around the station. So the fixtures themselves are going to be fundraised privately.
So there is a little bit of investment. You're just going to help out at once it does get involved.
One of those signature public-private partnerships.
Exactly. Kind of a buzzword these days, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a way of life. It's not a buzzword. It's what we do in our community. It's all about collaboration and partnering with others, because that's really how we can stretch the public dollar. It isn't always about the public and taxpayer investment, but how we can partner with others, public, private, philanthropic, to make it happen.
So then, do you know what equipment they're going to be putting in down there yet, or has that not been decided?
They haven't fully fleshed out their plans. We just gave them the go-ahead on the locations. Now I think they're going to be deciding what type of material, but I believe it's climbing. It's generally, the strength type of work that they're focusing on.
Anything else that you'd like to add then before we let you go?
No, I hope that the next day is as beautiful as it is today for our Mayor's Monday.
Absolutely. Well, we'll look forward to that again next month, and we'll see where the travels take us.
All right. Thanks so much.